Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial.
This week we will take a look at a website design and publishing tool by Real Mac Software called Rapidweaver 8. Rapidweaver allows you to design custom websites that start with a basic theme that you can customize into your own personal creation. In this week's show, we will walk through all of the steps necessary to put together your own website just using the built-in features of the application with no add-ons. In a future show, we will cover some of the more advanced features of Rapidweaver, including further customization, third-party add-ons, and search engine optimization. So let's look at the initial installation and setup of Rapidweaver 8. So this is the Real Mac Software website at realmacsoftware.com, and this is Rapidweaver 8. If I just scroll down here, you'll see that Rapidweaver is $99. There is upgrade pricing if you have a previous version of Rapidweaver, or you can also download a trial if you want to try the application before you purchase it. Rapidweaver 8 is also a part of your subscription with SetApp, so if you have a subscription, you can open the SetApp and download it from there. In my case, I've already downloaded and installed the application, so let's go ahead and just put this down, and we'll launch Rapidweaver 8 for the first time. Now, when you first launch Rapidweaver, you get this welcome panel, and it has a number of helpful features built into it. If you ever want to get rid of it, you can always uncheck this box so that it won't launch at startup. But one of the things I want to point out are some of the features in here. The first is there are some examples of websites that are built with Rapidweaver, so if you want to get an idea for how those are built, you can launch one of these to take a look at them. Or if I just click on this, all of your recent Rapidweaver projects will show up here in this panel, so you can launch them right from here instead of having to hunt for them. Or you could open another project right here and go through the Finder to get it. Now over here there are a couple of helps that are built into this welcome panel. The first is you can visit the Rapidweaver community. If I just click on this, you'll see that it takes us to the Rapidweaver community website where there are thousands of add-ons and video tutorials. And if I just scroll down here, you get an idea for all the different add-ons. If I come down here, you can see different courses that they offer as well as videos to help you with different topics. So you can come in here and get help for whatever you're looking for. If I just put this down again, you'll see that there's also a Rapidweaver forum. And by clicking on that, I'm taken to the forum website where you can come in here and ask for help from other users. And you can see it's pretty active. People have already been responding just an hour earlier. So you can come in here if you need help as well for specific things that you're trying to do with Rapidweaver. So let's go ahead and create a new Rapidweaver project. I do that by clicking right here. And you can see this is the Rapidweaver interface.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.